Welcome back to another episode of the Marathon. My name's Mare. If you are new here, welcome. We're a safe place. Enjoy. I really went back and forth about filming this particular video, but I get so many messages saying that these updates are helpful, so I wanted to film it with the hopes that it is helpful and encouraging or comforting. And I get a lot of messages from either women or men or people who are newly widowed, or even some who have been a widow for years and have just never found any online content to make them feel less alone. And I get that. I'm incredibly grateful to previous Mare who had the bravery to come back and film and be quite honest in these videos in the past 4 years, because a lot of the messages that I get are, you know, I'm a new widow, what's your advice? And I often say, if you have a question, I would pretty much guarantee I've answered it in the last 4 years of content. And then I also get messages saying that people find it really helpful to see someone who's much further in their journey when they're at a place where they don't feel any hope, to see someone who's 4 years out, that it gives them that boost when they need it. So that's why I'm filming today's video. It is, as you can tell from the title, 4 years since I became a widow, and I've been filming these like 1, 2, 3, and 4 to give an update. And I also have some of your questions to answer today. If you ever have a question, you can always leave it in a video response, like in the info down below in the comment section. You can find me on Instagram, or you can join the Marathoner Facebook group. There are links for those down below as well. So this past year has been different because unexpectedly for all of us, we were still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. I haven't gone back and watched the 3 years later video, so I'm not sure how much I talked about it, but I've thought a lot this past year about how grateful I am that I didn't become a widow at this point, because I can't imagine being home alone and people not being allowed to come into my home. So if you are in that situation, I'm sending you a virtual hug and also a virtual self high five, because you're incredible. I rely so much on my support system and also the marathoner community that I cannot imagine going at this alone. I found this past year mostly the easiest one yet when it came to my grief, which was very encouraging. But then there was a few times where I was hit very hard unexpectedly. So the things that changed in the last year for me were I am in a committed long-term relationship now, and my partner moved in about 6 months ago. And it's been incredible, but what I wasn't expecting was this overwhelming like rush of emotion. Like subconsciously I didn't understand what was happening, but now I realize what it is finally realizing that I can stand back, like stand down. I don't have to be hyper vigilant. I don't have to take care of everything. And that hasn't been the case for many years. Even before I was a widow, I did a lot of stuff around here supporting my partner. So to be able to have that like feeling of teamwork and support and co-parenting, soon after he moved in, I was going for a walk with my girlfriends, and I said, like, do you mind watching Thomas? Like, do you mind if I do this? And he just looked at me and said, like, it's not watching Thomas, it's co-parenting. Like, I know what I signed up for. And I was like, So I think while that's been incredible, it's just been like another thing I'm sort of processing, you know, opening my home and my space to that. It's been amazing. And I would also say I wasn't expecting, but if you watched the video that I filmed recently where Thomas turned 10, I said that I had been really noticing unexpected processing emotion of realizing how hard the last decade has been. And that kind of continued. And I actually went back to therapy in the last month a few times to really unpack what's been happening, because I've been finding it really difficult. So I also went back to school this year, and once school ended, I thought it would be like this magical time, but I found it quite emotional. And what happened was, it was the first time I'd taken time off significantly. I mean, I'm still running my business, but I'm not writing the book. Thomas isn't home because of COVID. I'm not in school, so I have more downtime. And it's taken me this long to process how horrifically hard it was before Jeremy took his life, when he did, and after. And I've had to unpack a lot of that in therapy. And one thing that's really helped me is, instead of referring to it as grief, referring to it as trauma. Because when you lose someone to suicide, it's different than losing them in another way. Not saying anything about any other way that someone loses their life. It's just, it's very traumatic when it's suicide. And my particular situation was very dramatic and traumatic, very public, very big. There's a lot of layers to it. And you know, people would say to me like, oh, I don't know how you're doing it. I don't know how you're going on. I just kept saying like, oh, I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. And now I realize like I did have a choice. It was very difficult. And my way of dealing with it was just powering through, being very mindful that I didn't want that to be my, like how I was defined. I never wanted to be like just stuck in that situation. And I've also realized that I have been in that like fight or flight or freeze mode for 4 years since he died. But even before that, it was even more. Supporting someone who has very severe mental health is incredibly hard. And then also supporting a child with special needs. The older Thomas gets, the more independent he gets, and the easier that is. I can give him more responsibility. I can sort of relax a little bit, as other parents will know the same thing. But with the unicorn moving in, I have finally been able to like stand down from being in that perpetual sense of like hypervigilance, like what's gonna happen? Am I safe? This is all like subconscious, you know? I mean, some of it I knew. So yeah, it's been like an emotional release, I think, in the last month, which I wasn't anticipating, but it feels very healthy. It's been very helpful to refer to it as trauma and unpack that, because I've learned that your brain remembers like the time of year when something traumatic happens, and then it like triggers something in you to remind yourself that like danger is near. You need to prepare yourself. And so what's been helpful for me is recognizing that, and then being able to be like, we're no longer in that place. We're no longer in danger. We're okay. And instead of holding on to anger about what happened and Jeremy's suicide, I've been reworking that pain. And when pain comes up, thinking of it as that pain is there because a younger version of yourself went through trauma and a horrific experience. So we honor her and her strength and courage. We still have that pain, but instead of it being upset towards someone else, it's like a source of strength and a reminder of how far we've come, how much work we've done, and where we're going. And that's been really healthy for me. Because we don't really focus on that much, you know, at least I don't. I know you do, you're also supportive and wonderful and reminding me, but to actually hold on to that has been very healing. So I think this last year, there's been more healing than grieving. Although someone asked me what I would say to Jeremy if I could say something to him, or what I would ask him. I wouldn't ask him anything. I would just say, like, you are missing so much. Thomas is so incredible. And that's what's hard for me. That's the most pain I still feel, is Thomas's loss. And if you don't believe that your body keeps the score, today's June 11th. June 9th was the 4-year anniversary of Jeremy dying. Yesterday, Thomas had a hugely emotional day at school. Like, he doesn't know. Like, so you try and tell me that your body doesn't remember trauma. Like, and the same thing happened last year, and the same thing happened the year before. Like, his little self, like, you know, you hold on to that. So that's really difficult for me. I'm trying to, you know, help him work through it and talk to him about it and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's hard. That's very difficult. So I feel very like a sense of peace, especially with the therapy that I've done this year. Instead of, because I went into it being like, I cannot believe this is still so painful. Like, it's already been 4 years. And I knew she was gonna say, like, it's only been, and we need, you're stuck on something, so let's work through something. And that has been very helpful for me. Yeah, so overall, wonderful. I was worried about school because I knew that we would be talking about mental health and we'd be talking about suicide, but I was very proud of myself for being able to stay in the conversation and not like turn off my camera or leave class early or that sort of thing. So that felt really empowering as well. Other than Thomas's, you know, emotional upset yesterday, for the most part, he's been good. He had a few more big emotions earlier this year, but for the most part, he has been growing and learning and evolving and talking and showing appreciation and affection, and he's just come so far in the last year, which warms my heart. I'm just so proud of him. So I'm going to read some of your questions. These are from Instagram and also the Marathoner Facebook group. How do you communicate to the unicorn when you're having a really hard day with your grief? Well, right away when we started dating a few years ago, I had warned him about like a few dates and said, like, these are hard, just so you know. I was surprised that things were difficult this year because I thought, you know, it's been 4 years, I'm in a loving, committed relationship, I'm so happy. So that was difficult to navigate for me. But I mean, in regards to how do I tell him, I just straight up tell him. He's very supportive. He basically is just like willing hands. Like, how can I help you? What can I do to support? But not like constantly asking that. He'll just, you know, do things or just be present in case I need something or don't need something. Same with Thomas. He's just so loving, and he knew I was a widow when we started dating. So, you know, he knew what he was getting himself into. And I knew that when I was dating different people, that eventually I would be, when I was ready to commit to someone long term, that they would have to be very emotionally evolved, have gone through their own stuff, you know, not be afraid of seeing me cry or be upset. And he ticks all the boxes. Unicorn status, definitely still intact. My daughter is missing her dad as Father's Day ads ramp up. How can I help? He died 2 years ago. I'm really sorry. My dad died when I was 19, and that Father's Day sucked for so long. Father's Day honestly was hard until we had Thomas, and then I was able to focus Father's Day on Jeremy. And then after he died, it sucked again because, you know, I felt for Thomas and I felt for myself just terrible. I think I do have a video that's all about how, or I have a few videos about how I manage those arbitrary days, which are very upsetting when you know, say you've lost your mom or you don't have a great relationship with her or you've lost your dad. I would say be supportive, ask her what she needs, let her, you know, talk about her dad, share memories if that's what she wants. Remind her to stay away from social media as Father's Day approaches, and especially on that day. Maybe plan something else or just play it by ear. Be very flexible, but like the unicorn does, like just kind of like have those willing hands, like what do you need? And if they're not sure, provide some options, but let them lead. And it may change, you know. Grief definitely is a real bitch, and she doesn't do things in any way, shape, or form. And every year can be different. Someone asked about Thomas, which I appreciate. For the most part, wonderful. It is so wonderful to have a very strong male influence in his life, and he and the unicorn have bonded immensely. Often he goes to him more than he goes to me, which is great. And yeah, he's doing wonderful. He misses his dad. We both noticed him looking at pictures of Jeremy in the last probably like 6 weeks to 2 months more. And we both just say like, we see you're looking at your dad and like he loves you and he misses you. And you know, we just talk it out as much as you can to try and be helpful. Someone said, how's it been 4 years? I know. Sometimes it feels like it hasn't been, and sometimes it feels like it's been way longer. Often I feel like that's a different person. Like I feel so differently now than I did when it happened. A lot of my social group has changed. My career has changed. My life has changed. Lots of the house has changed. So I feel like that's, I liked in therapy when we talked about like honoring that previous Mare, like that's sort of a different story, and that book has now been closed and like put on a shelf, but we honor her and love her and, you know, commend her for her bravery and her hard work. But now we're on to a new chapter and a new book, which was very helpful. Do you talk to the unicorn about your grief while it's happening? Absolutely. Or I don't even need to tell him, like he can just tell. He's very in tune and helpful. But if I'm feeling a certain type of way, we're very communicative, like very straightforward with one another. I would appreciate any thoughts on finding love after becoming a widow. My husband, the love of my life for 30 years, has been gone for 2.5 years. I struggle with how to find new love when I'm still in love with my husband. I think I've resigned myself to being alone for the rest of my days. No one says that you have to. Like, you do you. It is your life, your choices, your heart, your everything. No one says you have to. If you want to, wonderful. And if you don't want to, that's also wonderful. Like, there's no guide to grief. There's nothing you have to do. But what I would say is if you do want to, what I did is I made a very conscious list of my non-negotiables of what this new person would or would not have to have or not have, characteristics, history, like, you know, finances, profession, family, values, all that kind of stuff. And this was actually advice that I was given to given from a girlfriend of mine. And she said, you know, date, and then your list can kind of like ebb and flow. If you meet someone and you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like, yes, that's now really important to me, or this isn't actually super important to me. You can edit as you go. And that I found really helpful, especially being a woman in her, you know, Jeremy died when I was 33. I started dating when I was 35. Like, I wasn't messing around. I'm very happy on my own. I loved being single, like coming home and only dealing with my problems and Thomas's, perfection. Not having to talk to anyone after Thomas went to bed, great. Like, I love my time alone. And that would be another piece of my advice, is like, really find yourself, meet yourself, learn about yourself. Like, what do you like? What do you not like? You know, obviously you were with this other person for 30 years. So when you started dating him, it's very different than now. And so your likes have changed, your needs have changed, your wants have changed. You know, it's cheesy, but like, I've been watching a lot of Drag Race, and as RuPaul says, like, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love somebody else? I would really recommend taking a lot of internal time to work on yourself, like journaling and writing letters to yourself, being quiet with yourself, trying new things. Like, what is it that you like? Maybe you like something now that's important to you that it wasn't back then. That was me for sure. Like, I met Jeremy when I was, I don't know, 21, 22, very young. And like, I didn't really care about much, to be honest. I didn't have a child, you know, so it's very different. And to have those standards and to have that list, I think, is something that shows a lot of self-worth and a lot of self-love. And like, you don't need to waste your time, right? You can have fun. That's fun. I had a lot of fun, but a lot of those people were not long-term options. We were just enjoying ourselves, which is also good. If you had to give just one piece of advice to someone after the loss of a loved one, what do you think would be the most helpful? To be, I mean, it's not gonna be one piece of advice, you know me, obviously. Be as kind to yourself as possible. Show yourself as much grace and as much love as you can, and go easy on yourself. Like, you're already going through a hard time. You don't need to put a bunch of like pressure on yourself. You don't need to do anything that doesn't feel good for you. But really, like, be kind to yourself. That would be my piece of advice. Be kind to yourself. And then from that stems, like, being kind to yourself means like taking care of your health, you know, not like drinking too much or eating garbage all the time or not sleeping or not being active. Like, even if being active is like a slow walk for 20 minutes or, you know, restorative yin yoga where you hold poses for like 5 minutes, just something to honor yourself, to be kind to yourself and say like, you're going through a hard time. This will pass. It will get better. We're watching this video of this woman who's 4 years out. She can tell me it does get easier. Even if you don't believe me, I promise it does. Yeah. So that was obviously more than one piece of advice, but you knew she wasn't gonna say. My question is how to deal with close family members who are still stuck. Someone, she said, I've done so much work to get my mental health right, but someone in my family didn't do therapy. I'm not sure if it's generational or what, but how do I deal with that? I don't want to be brought back down to a place, but I also want to be there for that person. This is really hard. It's not your job. Like, it's good to be supportive and be there for them, but you're also allowed to like set your own boundaries. You're allowed to say like, hey, I'm doing a lot of work. You know, talking to them about therapy, seeing if they'll talk to someone, leading by example. That's kind of what I like to do. Like, obviously I go on and on about being an advocate for therapy. I'm in school to become a therapist. Like, clearly she's a big rah-rah for therapy, but you can't force anyone to get help. You can't force them to change. You can't force them to want to go and talk about things. And you also need to honor and respect that. You know, if you can just meet people where they are, that's been a huge lesson for me during COVID. A huge lesson. It's like, instead of trying to push something on someone or expecting more from someone, just meeting them where they are. Like Brene Brown says, if you can just believe that everyone's doing their best, it's easier on you. Even if that's not the truth, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. if you can just tell yourself that they're doing their best, it makes your life easier. And maybe your family member is doing her best. This is all she knows. All you can do is work on yourself, and maybe that person will see like, oh, you seem so much happier. Oh, you seem X, Y, and Z. But it's really hard. It's so hard. I can definitely speak from experience, seeing people who I know and love who have had people pass away and them like not deal with it or go through their own trauma and not deal with it. And you can see it manifesting in other ways. It's very difficult, but it's not your place. You know, people can only do and change when they want to and how they want to, but I'm so proud of you for working on yourself, and I would just really focus on that. Still be supportive and still be loving, but don't do it at the expense of all the work that you've done too, if that makes sense. Also, something that was very helpful to me was like very soon after Jeremy died, like I'm talking like that week, one of my 2 therapists at the time came over and sat with me, and you know, I was like already very mindful that other people were going to try and lean on me, and I just had zero capacity. And so she said, like, picture yourself in the center, and then picture, I want to say she said a disco ball, but maybe it wasn't a disco ball. Maybe it was like a line of trees, like, you know how trees have like circles and they go out and they go out. Whatever the analogy was, like you're in the center of a circle, and then there's like, so because you're closest to the person who passed away, being the widow, you're in the circle, you're in the center. That was me and Thomas, like center. She's like, you only support Thomas. Then there was like, you know, say his parents, his siblings, my siblings, friends, family, colleagues, and it goes out and out and out of like degrees of separation. And she said, the people like on the outer rim, they support the people here, and then these people support these people, and these people support these people. If you're in the center, you do not support anyone outside of you. I know I'm butchering it, but it really helped me. Like, it's not my job to support his friends. They can find their own support system. It's not my job to support his parents. They find their own support system. You know, their friends, like their family, etc. And that was really helpful because, especially in our culture, I think we have so much like guilt about putting ourselves first, but it's okay. It's okay to support yourself. I'm not saying don't be loving and kind to others, but also know that it's not your job to like hold space and comfort everybody else, because you too are in pain. Especially if you're someone like me, who my nature was to like suppress myself and support everybody else. I did that very well when Jeremy was alive, with Jeremy and Thomas. And like, that's no way to heal, right? So I hope that's helpful. I hope this 4-year update has been good for you. I feel good. I feel very like zen and calm. And while I don't go to therapy every week, I probably check in with her, I don't know, quarterly. And it was 2 weeks in a row in the last couple of weeks. Very helpful. And just nice to kind of like have her on retainer. So I hope that you're getting the support that you need, that you want, that you deserve. And I want to say thanks to the marathoner community for another year of love and support, and my friends and my family who have stuck with Thomas and I, and Thomas's support team. He's very loved. The unicorn and I were telling him that this morning. While his dad may not be here, he has lots of family who love him. His teachers, his school team, you know, respite, my girlfriends, so much love in his life. So I know you have a lot of love in your life too. I'm gonna stop rambling. Let me know if you found this helpful. If you have any follow-up questions. I can't imagine you do, considering I just rambled on for like a half an hour, but yeah, life's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Take care of yourselves. If you haven't read Finding Your Cape, the best-selling book that I wrote and released last year. There's a lot more in there that I'm sure you would find helpful. There's links down below on how to find it, paperback, digital, or you can listen to me read the book to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.